The Tetris Effect. The Tetris Effect refers to the intrusion of a particular task, job, or hobby into a person's thoughts, perceptions, and dreams. The phenomenon takes its name from reports by people who spend long periods playing Tetris and found the game permeating their mental life, even when they were not playing. Players described seeing falling blocks when they closed their eyes, thinking about real-world objects in terms of how they might fit together, and mentally arranging buildings or everyday items as if they were pieces in the game. Their dreams often involved endless rounds of Tetris, falling shapes, or the compulsive need to complete lines. The Tetris effect is not limited to Tetris itself. Similar experiences are reported across many video games, tasks, and occupations. Players of various games frequently report dreaming about game mechanics, repeating in-game actions during dreams, or experiencing changes in dream perspective. Some people report dreaming in third-person or top-down viewpoints after extended exposure to strategy or simulation games that use those visual perspectives. This phenomenon is not exclusive to video games. People who spend much of their lives engaged in highly repetitive or cognitively immersive work often report that their dreams are shaped by those activities. Programmers commonly describe dreams composed entirely of code, complete with syntax errors they attempt to debug while dreaming. Musicians report dreams consisting solely of sound or music, sometimes without visual imagery, or dreams filled with sheet music. Mathematicians may dream of solving proofs or equations, while chess players sometimes report dreams in which they are trapped on a chessboard or endlessly analyzing positions. Threat simulation theory. The purpose of dreams is a highly debated topic, with a clear scientific consensus being difficult to reach due to how little we still understand about the nature of dreaming. One prominent theory, the threat simulation theory, proposes that dreams serve an evolutionary function. According to this theory, dreams exist to simulate threatening events, allowing individuals to experience danger in advance and mentally prepare for it. The theory suggests that individuals who dreamed about threatening situations, such as being hunted or attacked by wild animals, were more likely to survive these events in waking life because they had already rehearsed them before. This increased survival would have allowed the trait to be passed down to future generations, making threat simulation a core reason why we dream. In modern times, this same mechanism may still be active, with dreams now simulating contemporary threats, such as public speaking, school exams, social rejection, or other stressful situations. This theory may help explain the prevalence of negative or fear-based dreams, particularly in children. It's especially relevant among children who have experienced trauma or grown up in war-torn regions, where danger is constant and survival is a daily concern. In such environments, dreams may function as repeated rehearsals for dealing with ever-present threats. Lottery dreams. A common trope in newspaper stories and sensational reports is people winning the lottery after dreaming of the numbers or a particular-looking ticket. Despite how fantastical this idea sounds, there have been many reported cases of individuals who claim that they had won the lottery using numbers they believed came from their dreams. In 2022, Alonzo Coleman, a retiree in Virginia, won $250,000 playing the Bank a Million lottery using a set of numbers that came to him in a dream. In 2025, a woman from Maryland claimed she dreamed of a sequence of numbers that stuck in her head after waking up. She played those numbers and eventually won $50,000. In North Carolina, Robert Hoban purchased a $1 ticket and later dreamt that he had won $110,000. The next day, his dream ended up matching reality, and he won the exact same amount he had seen in his dream. Another man from North Carolina, Ricky Nunnery Jr., says he dreamt he would win big in the lottery. Acting on that dream, he bought a $10 ticket and went on to win the $1 million top prize. A widely shared story from Australia involves a man who claimed he won $1 million using a set of numbers that came to him in a dream 13 years earlier. He said he had written the numbers down immediately and continued playing them for over a decade until they finally paid off. Those are not the only stories. There exist numerous reports of people winning lotteries after receiving the numbers or premonitions in dreams. Liminal dreams. There exist many shared dream locations, spaces reported by multiple people across the world. These communal dream spaces have gained popularity online, especially on platforms like TikTok and other social media, where users began sharing recurring dreams of liminal, maze-like environments. Among these, one of the most frequently reported and popular is what users have dubbed Mall World. Dreamers consistently report walking through endless, maze-like corridors of empty malls with layouts that seem to defy logic and physics. Elevators and escalators often extend impossibly long distances, or lead to non-existent floors or completely different locations. These dream spaces combine fragmented memories of real malls with archetypal mall imagery, producing a surreal and vaguely unfamiliar environment. These shared spaces are not limited to malls. Many people report high school dreamscapes with similar maze-like corridors. These high school dreams may be populated with people or entirely empty, much like mall worlds, but they share the same confusing endless layouts and foreboding atmosphere. Often, the dream high schools resemble memories of actual schools, but with added sections, enlarged rooms, or impossible connections, leading to unrelated locations. Another commonly reported dream environment are bathroom mazes or bathroom worlds. These are surreal, distorted bathrooms in which toilets face each other or sit side by side. Stalls and partitions may be missing or have large impractical gaps between them. The overall layout is maze-like and much larger than any real bathroom. These spaces are often depicted as dirty or wet, while still maintaining the same sense of vague familiarity. Across the globe, dreamers report numerous other shared dream spaces, all similar in themes: empty, liminal places, maze-like structures, and vaguely familiar landscapes that mimic reality but are distorted. Rooms and corridors are larger than in real life, impossible, or rearranged in dream logic. Locations like endless suburbs, beaches, water parks, and more have also been reported. While this phenomena is more logically explained as memories of real-world places merged and distorted by the unconscious, a more outlandish theory exists. The theory states that these recurring locations are actual dimensions on the astral plane, accessible during dreams. According to this theory, the repeated and nearly identical features reported by people on different continents suggest that these are communal dream spaces, locations that multiple individuals visit while dreaming, a shared dimension or dimensions beyond waking reality. S.U.N.D.S. During the late 1970s and 1980s, a series of unexplained deaths occurred in the United States among Southeast Asian refugees, the majority of whom were Hmong people originally from Laos. These deaths occurred predominantly in young, otherwise healthy men with no known prior medical conditions. In most cases, death occurred during sleep. In some instances, family members reported that the men would suddenly scream or cry out while sleeping. When relatives rushed to them, they were found dead. A total of approximately 117 such deaths were recorded by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention during this period, a phenomenon that came to be known as Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, or S.U.N.D.S. An investigation was launched, but the cause of the deaths remained unclear. Despite this, several theories were proposed by many people. One early hypothesis suggested that these refugees, many of whom had survived war, were experiencing delayed effects of chemical weapons or nerve gas exposure from Southeast Asia. This theory was quickly dismissed, as this did not align with how nerve agents work, nor was there supporting toxicological evidence. Another explanation focused on cultural and religious factors. The Hmong are a deeply spiritual people whose traditional belief system involves shamans and ancestral spirits that provide protection and guidance. After fleeing their homeland and resettling in the United States, many lost access to these traditional practices, leading to a belief that they were spiritually unprotected. This fear was compounded by a belief in the Dab Sog, a malevolent spirit set to sit on a person's chest during sleep paralysis and attempt to suffocate them. These beliefs may have intensified fear, stress, and sleep disturbance among some individuals. The deaths attracted significant media attention at the time, including coverage by the Los Angeles Times. Film director Wes Craven later stated that these reports were the main inspiration for A Nightmare on Elm Street and the character of Freddy Krueger. Today, most of these cases are thought to be linked to Brugada syndrome, a genetic disorder that can cause fatal heart rhythm disturbances, often during sleep. The condition mostly affects young males, frequently leaves no detectable signs on autopsy, and closely matches the symptoms presented. Brugada syndrome and related cardiac disorders are more prevalent among certain Southeast Asian populations, including the Hmong. It's now believed that a combination of genetic susceptibility and extreme psychological stress, which was potentially exacerbated by cultural beliefs, fear, sleep deprivation, and trauma, may have contributed to triggering these fatal nighttime episodes. Healing and prodromal dreams. Healing dreams are dreams believed to bring about healing, whether physical or psychological, while prodromal dreams are dreams that predict the onset of an illness before any recognizable symptoms start appearing. There is a long and well-documented history of dreams being used for the diagnosis and treatment of illness. In ancient Greece, the temples of Asclepius, the Greek god of healing, were dedicated to this purpose. Individuals suffering from illness would first undergo ritual purification and bathing before participating in a process known as dream incubation. They would then sleep in the Aberfan or sleeping hall, often alongside others. During these dreams, the individual might be visited by Asclepius or his attendants. In some accounts, the god or his followers would directly heal the dreamer, often by touching the area associated with pain or illness, with the patient awakening feeling healed or restored. More commonly, the dream would convey symbolic or practical information. Upon waking, the individual will report the dream to temple priests, who would interpret it and provide a diagnosis and treatment plan based on the dream. In modern times, there have also been documented cases in which dreams appear to precede the recognition or diagnosis of disease, sometimes before noticeable physical symptoms emerged. In one reported case, a man dreamed that he was bitten on the back by a black panther. Upon waking, he noticed a mole in the same location as the bite in the dream. The mark he found at that site was later diagnosed as melanoma. Another case involves a man who had experienced a recurring dream of a rat gnawing at the lower part of his abdomen. He was later diagnosed with the ulcer in his small intestine. A woman also reported recurrent nightmares of dogs tearing at her stomach. A few months later, she was diagnosed with stomach cancer, which she succumbed to. In a small study involving 18 women with breast cancer, many reported having vivid or warning dreams about tumors, at times urging them to seek medical evaluation before any symptoms were consciously recognized. There have also been cases where dreams have promoted or directly caused healing, but these are much rarer than prodromal dreams. In one instance, a woman named Wanda asked for help with her constant debilitating migraines. That night she had a dream. In the dream, she was at her oncologist's office, where she underwent a painless surgery on her head. After the surgery was finished, the surgical team showed her what they had removed, a small, blood-covered bead-like piece of tissue. Taking it in her hands, she felt small, hairy tentacles over the surface. She thanked the doctor and the team, and then woke up. 6 years later, she's had no migraines since that dream. A more psychological inclined healing dream was reported on Reddit. The Redditor claimed that they had fallen into a deep pit of depression for a few weeks, always feeling hopeless and on the verge of tears, not able to eat and feeling restless. One day after work, they had a strange dream. The Redditor dreamt that they had underwent brain surgery and were still a bit loopy from the drugs. Upon waking up, they felt as if the depression and the terrible feelings associated with it had simply just gone away. Aberfan disaster premonitions. On the night of October 20th, 1966, 10-year-old Errol Mai Jones, a resident of Aberfan, Wales, had a strange and vivid dream. The next morning, she rushed to tell her mother about it. In her own words, Errol had dreamt that she went to school, but there was no school there. Something black had come down all over it. The following morning, October 21st, 1966, Errol Mai went to school as usual. Around 9:15 a.m., after weeks of heavy rain, one of the coal tips above Aberfan, a large pile of mining waste, collapsed. A slurry of water, rock, and coal debris surged down the hillside, engulfing the school and nearby houses. 144 people died in the disaster, including 116 children, among them Errol Mai. In the aftermath, psychologist Dr. John C. Barker, who was interested in premonitions and supernatural phenomena, traveled to Aberfan to collect reports of dreams or premonitions experienced before the disaster. These included Errol Mai's dream, which was reported by her parents. According to his findings, the number of premonitory experiences reported was higher than expected, and not all were residents from Aberfan itself. In one example, J. Arthur Taylor, a 63-year-old man living in Stagsted, Lancashire, over 200 miles from Aberfan, reported a striking dream 2 days before the disaster. In his dream, Taylor was in a town near Aberfan purchasing a book. He saw a large machine with buttons, which he claimed might have been a computer. Suspended above it, in white letters on a black background, were the words, Aberfan. The dream then shifted to a view through a window, showing rows of derelict and desolate houses. Upon waking, Taylor did not recognize the word Aberfan and gave it no significance, until he heard it 2 days later on the news. Many other premonitory accounts were collected by Barker. Common themes included overwhelming darkness, a sense of suffocation, children running, or a general feeling of foreboding. One particular report came from Constance Milder, a 47-year-old from Plymouth, who attended a spiritualist meeting the day before the disaster. During the meeting, she experienced a waking vision in which she saw an old schoolhouse, a Welsh miner, coal cascading down a hillside, and rescue efforts taking place. Murder in the Red Barn. On the night of 17th May 1827, 24-year-old Maria Martin arranged to meet her lover, 22-year-old William Corder, at the Red Barn, a landmark in Polstead, Suffolk, England. The couple had met about a year earlier and developed a relationship. On that evening, they agreed they would meet at the barn and then set out together for Ipswich, where they planned to elope. According to Gerder's subsequent claims, everything went according to plan. Maria left her home, they met at the Red Barn, and they traveled to Ipswich together, where they were supposedly married and living happily. Maria's parents, however, never saw their daughter again after that day. They wrote repeatedly, but she never replied. Corder offered a string of excuses in his letters. He claimed that she was tired, had injured her hand, or that her letter had been lost, but her family was still worried. As time passed and letters ceased altogether, Maria's stepmother, Anne Martin, began experiencing disturbing dreams about her missing daughter. In these dreams, Maria appeared to her stepmother, revealing that she had been murdered and buried under the floor of the very Red Barn where she and Corder had met. At first, Anne dismissed the dreams, but when they recurred with vivid detail, she became convinced they were meaningful. On 19th of April 1828, nearly 11 months after Maria's disappearance, she persuaded her husband to investigate the barn. Acting on the specific location described in her dreams, which was near one of the grain storage bins, he began to dig. He uncovered a sack containing Maria's decomposed remains, exactly like her stepmother's dream. A handkerchief belonging to Corder was found wrapped around her body, implicating him directly in the crime. When police were notified, Corder was identified right away. He was found in London, running a boarding house with his new wife, and denying any involvement in Maria's disappearance. At first, he even denied knowing Maria Martin. Corder was arrested and brought back to Suffolk to face trial. During his trial, at Bury St. Edmunds, he was found guilty. Although he initially claimed Maria had committed suicide and that he panicked and buried her, he later admitted that he had shot her in an argument. The court sentenced him to death, and on 11th of August 1828, Corder was publicly hanged before a crowd of thousands. 4chan Anvil cloud stream. In a thread on 4chan, asking users to share paranormal experiences that deeply unsettled them or altered their worldview, one anonymous poster recounted his story. He claimed that when he was very young, around 4 years old, he repeatedly drew pictures of large cities, with the Twin Towers burning in the background. This was before 9/11. According to him, he had never seen the towers before and had no idea what they were. At the time, no one paid much attention to the drawings. That changed after September 11th. After the attacks, the adults around him became noticeably quiet, encouraging him to draw anything else instead of the burning towers. Roughly 15 years later, the Anon said he came across those old drawings again and was shocked to find 9/11 scribbled on some of them, dated before the attacks occurred. Disturbed, he asked his parents about it. They confirmed that he had been drawing those images before 9/11 and admitted they had hoped he would forget about it entirely. They also told him something he had never heard before. His mother had allegedly predicted multiple plane crashes between the 1960s and 1980s, describing them in extreme detail, including the exact locations of impact. According to them, she lost this ability after he was born. They further claimed that his grandmother and great-grandmother had possessed similar abilities, though to varying degrees. The Anon then went on to describe a dream he had years later, one that he said did not feel like a dream at all. In it, he believed he was fully awake, living his life as normal. The dream spanned nearly 70 years, unfolding in real time. At some distant point in the future, the International Space Station was deorbited, either intentionally or due to orbital decay. Not long after, a limited nuclear exchange occurred between the United States and Russia, during which 36 nuclear warheads detonated in the Texas Gulf region. The blasts crippled infrastructure nationwide. Cell towers, internet, television broadcasts, and basic services collapsed. Airstrikes followed for a time, then stopped entirely. About a week later, things worsened. Strange, anvil-shaped clouds began appearing suddenly in the sky. From these clouds emerged massive, angular brick-shaped ships, as if the clouds themselves were portals, with the ships frozen halfway through. The ships were slate gray, perfectly smooth, with no visible seams, openings, or texture. Nothing was ever seen exiting them, but screaming was heard everywhere. These ships heralded the arrival of a violent alien race, vastly more advanced than humanity. According to the Anon, the creatures skinned children and adults, and wore their skin, using it to perfectly imitate the voices of the people they had taken. They used these voices to lure survivors out of hiding by calling to them in the voices of loved ones. Despite being able to imitate voices perfectly, something was always wrong. The skin hung loosely on the bodies of the creatures. Beneath it, glowing, mechanical or augmented body parts were visible. Their faces appeared human, but beneath the skin, one could see 4 or 5 glowing white eyes. They were incredibly fast, far faster than humans, and though they walked upright, they moved even faster on all fours. The Anon claimed they were unkillable with human technology. Some people attempted to escape by killing themselves, but even that failed. The creatures could reanimate the dead, keeping them on life support for prolonged, grotesque experimentation. If they took you, he said, there was no escape. You were theirs forever. The aliens operated massive facilities on Earth that looked like ordinary warehouses from the outside. Inside, humans were liquefied and stored individually in devices resembling industrial dryers. Members of the human resistance carried handheld scanners, capable of identifying specific individuals within these liquefied remains. When possible, they would steal them before reconstitution, sparing them further suffering. Somehow, using this liquid, humans could reconstruct a person exactly as they had been. Within these facilities were also vast pools surrounded by symbols resembling Zoroastrian dogmas. The skin-wearing aliens used these pools ceremonially, filling them with liquefied humans, bathing in them, and drinking from them. People were sometimes thrown into the pools. Those who fell were transformed into one of these creatures. This systematic hunting and butchering of humanity continued until only an estimated 100,000 humans remained. The events of the dream unfolded over 72 years. Eventually, the alien spacecraft were destroyed. Anon put forth the possibility that this was done by outside intervention from a more powerful force or civilization. The aliens fled Earth, but the Anon claimed the sun appeared to be dying, locked in an eternal sunset, as its energy had been siphoned to power their escape. Earth was left almost entirely barren, a vast desert. As the ships vanished one by one, he heard screaming and felt that even in victory, humanity was still being hunted. He then woke up, having slept for 14 hours. Despite acknowledging how absurd the dream sounded, the Anon claimed that nearly every geopolitical event leading up to the invasion had already occurred. He listed the Russian invasion of Crimea, the collapse of Iraq, and the Syrian conflict as examples. According to the dream, the next events would be the fall of the rest of the Middle East, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, followed by the deorbiting of the ISS. After that, a war between the US and Russia would erupt, with Russia invading through Mexico, as the US was weakened by a civil war. Then would come the 36 nuclear strikes, global communications going dark, and finally, the alien arrival. He believed that these beings were a scavenger civilization, one that waits for intelligent species to destroy themselves before picking through the remains. Dream Parasite. Reddit user, Stellroom, posted a strange recurring dream in r/dreams. He claims that starting from when he was 3 years old, a strange rule began applying to his dreams. He couldn't touch ceilings. If he did, his dreams would instantly shift into terrible nightmares. He described his usual dreams as him sitting normally in a room, when suddenly he would start floating up. Aware of the rule, OP would grab onto a doorknob or anything nearby to stop himself from floating up, but no matter what he held onto, the pull was too strong. He would inevitably be drawn toward the ceiling, and the dream would turn into a horrific nightmare. This happened almost every night. When he was 6 years old, OP dreamed that he was playing with his friends in the living room, enjoying himself, when the floating began again. Fed up with the nightmares, he jumped toward the ceiling, breaking through it. On the other side, he found himself in a moonlit temple hall, completely empty, except for a girl his age, with black hair standing in the middle. She looked surprised to see him, as if he wasn't supposed to be there. OP confronted her, asking if she was the cause of the nightmares. She nodded. He got angry and began shouting at her, demanding that she leave and never come back, but he quickly calmed down when he noticed she was sobbing. He listened as she explained her grateful, and the dream ended. According to him, the nightmares stopped completely after that. He says he's now in his 30s, and once every few years since then, he has visited that same temple with the girl in his dreams. She has aged alongside him and is now a woman. They usually sit and talk about his life. He recalls visiting her once when he was depressed, and she told him that she would rather feel depression than not experience life at all. She asked him to imagine what it would be like to live entirely alone, and then dial it up a notch, to imagine not being conceived by two living beings, but existing as nothing more than an idea, born from nothing. Black Bedrooms. On September 25, 1981, in Blue Springs, Missouri, a 15-year-old girl was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when she heard a scaring sound coming from her closet. Thinking it was a squirrel or some other small animal, she ignored it. Soon after, she heard the sound of crinkling paper. The crinkling suddenly stopped and was replaced by the sound of many murmuring voices, as if she were in a crowded room. even though no one was there. She considered getting up to look out the window when she suddenly heard a loud voice speak directly in her right ear. She couldn't make out what was being said, except for the final words, "The gun." She immediately turned to see who had spoken, but instead found herself lying flat on her back, her right arm extended upward. She had no memory of moving into that position. At that moment, the room became completely pitch black, so dark she couldn't even see the tip of her raised arm. She realized she couldn't move. She wasn't in pain, but her entire body felt as if an electrical current was running through it. Suddenly, she began to levitate, rising above the bed while slowly spinning counterclockwise. As her body rotated back to its original orientation, she dropped back down onto the mattress. Panicked, but no longer paralyzed, she reached for the landline phone beside her bed, only to discover there was no dial tone. She jumped out of bed and ran toward the door. When she reached it, the doorway was gone, replaced by a black, tunnel-like hole, even darker than the surrounding darkness. Terrified, she began to scream, but the scream came out as a vibrating electrical sensation rather than sound. Shocked, she placed her hand over her mouth and instantly found herself back in bed, everything normal again. The entire experience had lasted about 10 minutes. While this event sounds unique and bizarre, it's not the only report of its kind. A Reddit user known as Lucky Principal 1510 shared a similar experience on r/paranormal encounters. According to him, he was 10 years old at the time and shared a bedroom with his younger sister. He woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and noticed that the room was pitch black, with not even the faintest hint of light. As he walked toward where the door should have been, he couldn't find it, despite the room being small and crowded with furniture. He walked for several minutes, feeling along the walls without bumping into anything. The room felt much larger than it should have been, completely empty and unfamiliar. After several minutes of wandering, he finally found his sister's bed. She woke up and saw the same total darkness. Together, they tried to find the door, taking just as long as he had alone. Panic set in. Eventually, they decided to move in the opposite direction of where the room's layout should have been, and only then did they finally find the door and the light switch. Years later, both siblings still clearly remember the incident. This phenomenon has been referred to by YouTuber and podcaster Dead Rabbit Radio as the Black Bedroom phenomenon. There are many similar reports of people waking up to find their bedrooms completely black, with no visible walls, windows, or familiar features. In these experiences, rooms often feel larger than normal, distorted in layout, or entirely alien. In some cases, people report finding a window and looking outside, only to discover that all the lights in the surrounding town are also gone.